Kateben, that is the first word of Plato's Republic. Kateben means I walked down. And that of course is reminiscent of katabasis, going down, katabasis, kai anabasis, to walk down but also to walk up, the move downwards at the same time the move upwards. And I just walked down into the ruins, what remains of Plato's academy here in Athens. This presumably was the gymnasium, if I'm not mistaken. Unfortunately, there are here no plaques that you could read anything about. It's a public park. Now, I'd like to invite you all to join me at our upcoming course on Plato's Republic. And again, that foundational philosophical work, the most foundational work in all of philosophy, begins with one verb, which is kateben, I walked down. And I think that this is significant. The walking down, I believe, speaks to the fact that as we walk up towards the forms and we begin to see more clearly the forms of what is, we do not actually leave behind this very world of ephemerality, so-called, but instead we rather begin to see more clearly the phenomena of the ephemeral world. So seeing the forms, in fact, allows us to see more clearly the forms. And as you can see, there are a couple of chaps here playing a sport in the spirit of the gymnasium that also was here. And rather, other than perhaps what Nietzsche would claim, and a few others, Plato was not at all opposed to the body and to bodily activity. Quite the opposite. The philosopher king was supposed to be trained in gymnastics and also enjoy musical education. So this is something that we'll also be looking at the course. And maybe briefly on some details on how we're going to do this. We'll be meeting 10 times. We'll have 9 seminars where we will be discussing basically all books, all 10 books. And we'll leave out some of the passages, obviously, so we can't read everything in 10 weeks. And at the final seminar, we'll be holding the conference where you can present your talk or a poem, a short story, etc., whatever you have written inspired by Plato and the course. So we will be discussing how and why the city emerges, what justice is, or rather what dikaiosune is. So we're trying to understand the Greek. We will always be looking at the Greek words first, and we will try to find different translations for most of them. And because if we think of, well, dikaiosune as only justice, I think that we will probably not grasp the broadness and the depth of that concept in Plato. We will then discuss the emergence of the guardians, and the ball just almost hit me, so finitude was calling. We will then discuss the guardians and how the different classes and castes come about, who are of the Bronze castes, the theory of the soul, of the Bronze soul, the silver soul, and the golden soul. To continue with Plato's notion or understanding of dialectics and why it's necessary, he calls it the beautiful art, after all. And of course, we must not forget the two analogies, the analogy of the sun and the analogy of the lion, followed by the myth of the cave. I will refuse to refer to it as an allegory of the cave for reasons that I will get into in the course. And after having discussed the myth of the cave, which is really the initiation myth of the philosopher, this is where the philosopher is born, where through the image of the cave we actually leave behind image or picture thinking. It's crucial to understand that there is a way out of the cave, and it is precisely in returning into the cave and going beyond its imaginal or pictorial character, which is always what Plato would like to push us towards, to leave behind our optic orientation. And after having discussed the allegory of the cave, we will discuss the dialectics of Dikaiosyne, or the dialectics of justice. What are the unjust forms of government and why? Followed by a discussion of mimesis and, of course, the myth of I will not say very much on the myth of here, but I would like to perhaps point out that Plato has specific reasons why he wants to ban certain poets, and that has to do with mimesis. He believes that as soon as the poet, Homer in this case, in this example in book 3, so in book 10 he comes back to book 3, he believes that when Homer takes on the voice of one of his characters, Chryses in that case, the Trojan priest, he blurs a line that a poet should not blur. He steps over a limit that the poet should not step over. The poet should refrain from speaking in the voice of one of his characters. That's when narration ends and a sort of mimesis takes over that makes it difficult for the readers and the listeners to appreciate the distinction between the poet and his characters. So what we will overall though be discussing for the most part of the course are the philosophical questions and themes that emerge in this text. So we won't be discussing all too much we won't be discussing the ideal city all that much, or the dimension of political philosophy that clearly is there. But what's more fundamental in the Politeia are the philosophical themes that are being laid out here. And we will also then see how future philosophers are responding to Plato. And of course, most prominently and most importantly, the German idealists. So we will have to, of course, go to Hegel and Kant and Fichte, precisely because what is already showing itself but not really coming to the fore in Plato's Politeia is that thinking and human freedom go together, and also each in its own way grounds itself. So the self-grounding of thinking that again and again comes up in the Politeia, that will be one of the most important aspects. And we will try to show and see, we will try to understand what it means to see as a philosopher sees. If you believe or if you assume the ideas or the forms to be ontological entities, which is a representational account, then of course you have to dream up some hinterworld, some beyond metaphysical second world. But if instead we can begin to think of them and through them as logical moments and logical principles, and as such as universals that participate in the particular and the other way around, which is why language is so important, then we will begin to see that there is no two-world paradigm in Plato, but that instead it is a transcendent immanence, or an immanent transcendence. And to begin to experience this transcendence is what we are ultimately going to be after in our reading of Plato's Politeia. So you are hereby cordially invited again here from the ruins of Plato's Academy to join us as we're reading this groundwork of the Western canon, this groundwork of philosophy, the work that grounds, in a way, philosophy as a response also against the sophistic attacks, not just against philosophy, but really against the phenomena. What the philosopher is trying to do is to safeguard the phenomena. And I have been here now in Athens for the first time for the past week, and while I've been here, I've been recording the lecture course on Plato and also a course on Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, which we'll be offering later in the year. So again, you're cordially invited to join us. The genius loci, the spirit here of this place, has taken me over, so I have been kissed by the muses of ancient Greece while I was here. Mnemosyne, the mother of the muses, I think was strong in her presence, and it speaks, and I think you can hear that when you listen to the lectures. So we'll meet, if you have time for the seminars, would be great if you could join the seminars. If you don't have time, just get the lectures and help support the work here to keep alive the eternal project that is philosophy. So again, from the ruins, from the ashes, we shall rise. Thank you very much indeed, and I hope to see you at the course. Bye.